They didn't come to listen. They came to break him. The questions were sharp. The room was hostile. Every camera was waiting for one mistake. They had cornered the most dangerous man on earth, Muhammad Ali. One angry word could destroy his legacy. One emotional reaction could end everything. Everyone expected fists. Everyone expected fire. But Ali did something so calm, so controlled, so unexpected, that the room fell silent. This wasn't set a fight. This was a master class in power. And what he did next changed how history remembers strength forever. 1. Real power doesn't need to prove itself. When they cornered him, everyone expected an explosion. They expected raised voices, sharp words, maybe even anger. After all, this was Muhammad Ali, the man known for thunderous confidence and fearless defiance. The room was charged, the pressure unbearable, and every eye waited for him to strike back. But Ali didn't give them what they wanted. He understood a truth that most people learn too late in life. The need to prove yourself is a sign of weakness, not strength. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't rush to defend its ego. It doesn't panic when challenged. Real power is calm, grounded, and unshakable. Ali knew that the moment he reacted emotionally, he would lose control of the situation. So instead of fighting the pressure, he stood still inside it. His silence wasn't confusion. It was confidence. His calm wasn't fear. It was mastery. In that moment, Ali showed that true dominance isn't about overpowering others, but about owning yourself completely. When you no longer need validation, insults lose their power. When you stop proving, you start leading. And that's why the room didn't defeat him that day. Because the strongest man there wasn't the loudest. It was the one who didn't need to raise his voice at all. 2. Silence can be more powerful than any response. When the pressure tightened around him, the questions kept coming. Accusations piled up. Voices grew louder. They weren't looking for answers. They were looking for a reaction. And Muhammad Ali knew it. So he did something most people are too afraid to do. He stayed silent. Not weak silence. Not confused silence. Intentional silence. Ali understood that when you speak in anger, you give your opponent control. Words spoken under pressure often reveal fear, not truth. So instead of interrupting, defending, or correcting, he let them talk. He let them expose themselves. Every harsh word made their frustration clearer. Every accusation revealed their insecurity. Silence has a strange power. It forces others to hear their own voice. It turns noise into discomfort. It makes weak arguments collapse under their own weight. Ali's silence wasn't avoidance. It was strategy. He knew that not every battle deserves a reply, and not every attack requires defense. Some situations don't need words. They need restraint. Most people speak to protect their ego. Ali stayed quiet to protect his position. And in doing so, he flipped the entire room. The attackers lost momentum. The tension shifted, and silence became louder than anything they could say. Sometimes the most powerful response is refusing to play the game at all. 3. Never let others define who you are. They didn't just corner him with questions. They tried to corner him with labels. Unpatriotic, arrogant, dangerous, un-American. They spoke as if repeating a lie enough times would turn it into truth. But Muhammad Ali never fought labels, because he never accepted them in the first place. Ali understood something deeply powerful. The moment you argue with a label, you give it power over you. He didn't waste his energy correcting every accusation. He didn't beg to be understood. He didn't shrink himself to fit into someone else's definition. Instead, he stood firmly in who he already knew he was. Most people collapse when others misunderstand them. Ali stood taller. Because identity doesn't come from public approval. It comes from private certainty. When you know who you are, insults bounce off you. When your values are clear, confusion can't shake you. When your purpose is rooted, no crowd can uproot it. That day, they tried to name him. Ali refused the name. And in that refusal, he taught the world a timeless lesson. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You just need to live it. The strongest people aren't those who are praised the most. They stir the ones who remain themselves, even when everyone else tries to rewrite them. 4. Pressure reveals character, not talent. Anyone can look powerful when everything is going their way. When the crowd is cheering. When the odds are in their favor. When success comes easily. But this moment was different. This wasn't a boxing ring. No gloves. No referee. No applause. just pressure. And under that pressure, Muhammad Ali showed the world something far greater than skill. He revealed character. Talent shines in comfort. Character is exposed in crisis. When they boxed him in emotionally, Ali didn't reach for aggression. He didn't lean on fame. He didn't hide behind excuses. Instead, he stood still, grounded, disciplined, unmoved. That calm wasn't accidental. It was built through years of self-control, belief, and inner alignment. Pressure strips people down to their truth. It shows whether confidence is real or rehearsed, whether strength is internal or borrowed. Most people panic when cornered. Ali clarified. In that moment, he proved that greatness isn't measured by how hard you hit when you're winning, but by how steady you remain when everything is against you. Anyone can perform when conditions are perfect. Only a few can hold themselves together when the room is closing in. And that's why this moment mattered. Because the world didn't just witness a champion under pressure. It witnessed a man whose character was stronger than the situation itself. That is the kind of strength no opponent can ever take away. 5. You don't owe everyone an explanation. When they surrounded him, they didn't just want a reaction. They wanted justification. Explain yourself. Defend your choices. Clarify your beliefs. Apologize for who you are. That's how pressure works. It doesn't always attack you directly. Sometimes it pressures you to explain your existence. And this is where Muhammad Ali displayed a level of wisdom that most people never reach. Ali knew something dangerous. The moment you start explaining your values to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you lose your power. He could have spoken for hours. He could have debated, reasoned, defended. He could have tried to sound acceptable, but he didn't. Not because he lacked answers, but because he understood a deeper truth. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Most people think explanations bring peace. In reality, explanations often invite more attacks. When you explain, they dissect your words, they twist your intentions, they move the goalpost, they demand more clarity, more proof, more surrender. And before you realize it, you sit no longer standing on your values. You sit negotiating them. Ali refused that trap. He understood that explanations are powerful only when given by choice, not when demanded under pressure. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He simply knew his convictions didn't need to pass a public approval test. There's a powerful psychological shift that happens when you stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. People feel it. When you don't rush to justify your decisions, it signals certainty. When you don't beg to be understood, it signals strength. When you don't explain your worth, it forces others to confront their entitlement. Ali's silence wasn't arrogance. It was boundaries. And boundaries make insecure people uncomfortable. That's why the room grew tense. That's why the pressure backfired. That's why the moment shifted. Because nothing unsettles controlling people more than someone who refuses to submit emotionally. Ali showed that day that dignity is not loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't plead. It stands. Most people exhaust themselves trying to convince the world they are right. Ali conserved his energy because he knew who he was. And here sits the lesson that cuts deep. If someone only respects you when you explain yourself, they never respected you to begin with. You are allowed to live by your principles without footnotes. You are allowed to make choices without public debate. You are allowed to stand firm without permission. Ali didn't win that moment with words. He won it by refusing to give his inner authority away. Because the strongest people don't spend their lives explaining who they are. They let consistency do the talking. And in a world that constantly demands justification, that kind of quiet certainty is revolutionary. 6. Control your emotions, or they will control you. When they pressed him harder, the situation was perfectly designed to provoke anger. Sharp words, public humiliation, a room full of eyes waiting for him to snap. For most people, that kind of pressure triggers instinct, not wisdom. Anger rises. The pulse quickens. The ego screams for defense. One careless reaction, and everything collapses. But Muhammad Ali had already won this battle, long before that moment arrived. He had mastered himself. Ali understood that emotions are not enemies, but unchecked emotions are dangerous rulers. Anger, when uncontrolled, doesn't protect you. It exposes you. It hands your power to whoever knows how to push your buttons. That's why provocation is such a common tactic. Make someone emotional, and you make them predictable. Ali refused to become predictable. Instead of reacting to the noise outside, he regulated the storm inside. His calm wasn't passive, it was disciplined. Every second he remained composed, the imbalance grew. Not in him, but in the people trying to break him. Here steps the brutal truth most people avoid. The person who controls their emotions controls the room. Anger would have turned the spotlight away from the truth and onto his temper. It would have given critics exactly what they wanted, proof that he was unstable, reckless, unfit to lead. Ali saw that trap clearly, so he chose restraint over release. This is what emotional mastery looks like in real life. Feeling the anger, but not obeying it. Hearing the insult, but not absorbing it. Sensing the injustice, but responding with intention. That level of control doesn't come from suppression. It comes from awareness. Ali didn't deny his emotions. He commanded them. Most people confuse emotional control with weakness. Ali showed it was the opposite. Weak people explode because they cannot hold themselves together. Strong people pause because they understand timing, and timing is everything. By staying calm, Ali forced the moment to slow down. He removed the fuel from the fire. The more composed he became, the more exposed his attackers felt. Their aggression looked small, their urgency looked desperate. Emotionally controlled people are dangerous. Not because they're cold, but because they're free. Free from manipulation, free from impulsive mistakes, free from regret. Ali's composure wasn't just about surviving the moment, it was about protecting the future. One emotional outburst could have been used against him forever. One angry sentence could have rewritten the narrative of his life. He didn't allow that. And that sets the lesson most people miss. Your emotions can either be tools or weapons. The choice is yours. When you let anger speak for you, it never says what you actually mean. When you master your emotions, you choose your legacy. Ali didn't just win a confrontation that day. He demonstrated that true strength isn't about how hard you react, but how completely you remain in control when everything inside you wants to explode. That is power. No one can provoke away. 7. History remembers restraint more than noise. In that moment, the room was loud with judgment. Voices clashed. Accusations echoed. Everyone thought this would be the scene people remembered forever. The outrage, the confrontation, the drama. But history had other plans. Because when the dust settled, no one remembered the insults. No one remembered who shouted the loudest. No one remembered the accusations in detail. What they remembered was how Muhammad Ali responded. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Noise feels powerful in the moment, but restraint lasts forever. Anger burns bright, and then disappears. Calm doesn't beg for attention, it leaves an imprint. Ali could have created a headline that day. He could have delivered sharp lines, explosive reactions, unforgettable drama. The world would have cheered for a moment. Social conversations would have flared, but moments fueled by outrage die quickly. Ali chose something slower, something quieter, something permanent. He chose dignity. History is not written by those who react the fastest. It's written by those who respond with intention. That's why decades later, people don't quote his opponents. They study him. They don't analyze the attacks. They analyze the restraint. Because restraint confuses people. It forces reflection. It invites meaning. Ali understood something most people never realize. You don't shape legacy in the heat of emotion. You shape it in the discipline of self-control. In moments of pressure, everyone wants to feel justified. Ali wanted to be remembered. That's the difference between temporary satisfaction and lasting impact. Every era has loud people. Every era has angry voices. But only a few figures rise above the noise and become symbols. Ali became a symbol not because he fought every battle, but because he chose which battles deserved his energy. And here sits the lesson that cuts the deepest. If you want to be remembered, stop trying to be heard in every moment. The world is full of reactions. It's starving for restraint. Muhammad Ali's space calm didn't sense just silence. A room. It echoed through history. Because in the end, history doesn't ask, who shouted back? It asks, who stood firm when it mattered most? And that's why this moment didn't fade. That's why it still speaks today. That's why Muhammad Ali's quiet strength became louder than any outrage ever could. True greatness isn't measured by how much noise you make, but by how deeply your restraint is remembered. They thought strength meant shouting back. They thought power meant domination. They thought silence was weakness. But Muhammad Ali showed the world something rare. He showed that the strongest people don't instead react, they respond. And maybe today, life is cornering you. Maybe people are testing your patience. Maybe the world is waiting for you to lose control. Remember this moment? You don't instead have to prove your power. You don't instead have to explain your worth. You don't instead have to fight every battle. Sometimes, the calmest person in the room is the one who wins everything. And when history looks back, it won't just remember the noise. It will remember how you stood when it mattered most.